Blog Talk Radio.
Stainless, stainless, skill, stainless, stainless, skill, stainless, stainless, skill, stainless, stainless.
What's good, what's good, what's good? I'm back for another episode of The Ant Show. And as always, I am Ant, and I'm coming to you worldwide on Blog Talk Radio, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Specker. And on today's show, we're going to discuss the hypocrisy of domestic violence coverage in the media. As I feel like that'll be an interesting topic to discuss today on today's show. And so, as always, you can chat with me on Blog Talk Radio if you listen to me on Blog Talk Radio. Or if you want to just hit me up, you can hit me up on my social media websites. I'm on Facebook. So if you just go to my profile pages, if you listen to me on Blog Talk or Speaking, you just go to my profile page, and you can follow my social media networks there. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at @ExpectedAnt, and I'm also on Tumblr at Mad Sexy, even though I'll probably make another Tumblr page for the show, because that Tumblr page is very much personal. But for right now, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Tumblr at lost my train of thought. At Mad Sexy, and I'm also on Twitter as well at Inspector Ant. If you want to follow me on, be my friend on Facebook. You can go ahead and hit me up on Facebook as well. My Facebook is on, the link to my Facebook page is on my profile page. So you can find all the information there. So, today's show is all about domestic violence and the media. And I want to talk about the hypocrisy of domestic violence in the media, as all we heard last week during the lead-up to the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, the quote-unquote fight of the century, which left many people disappointed, but we're not going to really get into that today. But the quote-unquote fight of the century, as the lead-up to that fight, all the thing people want to talk about was Floyd Mayweather's past with domestic violence, as he served 2 months in prison for beating up his ex-girlfriend at the time. From what I understand, no longer together. But he beat her up. He served his time, spent 2 months in jail, and a lot of feminist groups last week with their fake outrage, as I like to call it. Their fake outrage was all up in arms and upset that Mayweather, or upset over this 3-year-old story, and they even went as far as to protest the fight and said that Floyd Mayweather should be stripped of his titles, which to me doesn't make any sense, because this happened 3 years ago. So what were these feminist groups 3 years ago? Mayweather's fought plenty of fights over the last 3 years, but either way it goes. A lot of people were pissed off about it not today, but last week during the lead-up to the fight. And so for me personally, the story's 3 years old, and that's what I call fake outrage, because these women were nowhere to be found 3 years ago when all this first happened. Also in the last week, you have people who are outraged over the fact that the Seattle Seahawks drafted Michigan linebacker Frank Clark. Try to say that fast. They drafted Frank Clark on Friday in the second round of the NFL draft. Now, Clark was kicked off the Michigan football team in November after he punched his girlfriend. And a lot of people feel like, he shouldn't have been drafted, which I don't understand why people are mad about this. I get that he was charged with domestic violence. He was punished by the school to keep him off the football team. But just because you were charged with domestic violence does not mean that you do not earn the right, that you should be denied the ability to make a living in this country. I just don't believe that. But we live in this, this society where everybody wants to be the moral police. And, we get this behavior from, corporate officers. And, everybody says it's the post-Ray Rice world that we live in. But the thing that gets me with the whole Ray Rice story is that people seem to forget that Ray Rice's wife, Janay Rice, was also arrested for assault for the same incident that occurred on that tape. And the only difference is that, when Ray Rice hit her, he rendered her unconscious. In response to her assault, that Janay Rice hit Ray Rice first. She assaulted him first. And for that, they were both arrested and they were both charged with assault. And she was knocked out by Ray Rice with a single blow. But she threw the first punch. So you can make the argument that she wouldn't have been knocked out hadn't she not thrown the first punch. Now, the charges against both of them were dismissed, possibly because, they both admitted violence from both of them. Maybe neither of them wanted to press charges. Who knows? I don't know. And that there's it was, at the end of the day, the case between Ray Rice and Janay Rice was co-mutual domestic violence. And, sadly, co-mutual domestic violence is pretty much, typically, troubled or, simply a bad relationship. I don't know the history of, Janay Rice and Ray Rice, and it's none of my business, but I don't care. But a study that was done in 2007 by the American Journal of Public Health reported that almost half of domestic violence incidents in the United States are mostly co-mutual. Co-mutual means that it was violence on both sides. The man hit the woman hit the man, the vice versa. With 70% of non-co-mutual assaults committed by women, not men. So 70% of non-mutual domestic violence are committed by women. Only 30% are committed by men. But the way the media covers these incidents, you would think it would be the other way around, but it's not. And like I said, 70% of non-mutual domestic violence occurred by women, not men. But like I said, you wouldn't know that. Listen to all these feminist groups, even listen to our own president, Barack Obama, the vice president, Joe Biden, who paint domestic violence as largely and exclusively as being male on female. Then you have, earlier this year, you had Hope Solo. And so Hope Solo, she is the winning goalkeeper on the U.S. Olympic women's soccer team, as she helped lead the women to Olympic gold in both the 2008 and 2012 Olympics. And she was arrested and charged earlier this year after allegedly hitting her sister with a broomstick. Actually, was it earlier this year? Was it it happened last summer, Last summer. So she was arrested and charged with hitting her sister with a broomstick and repeatedly punching her nephew in the face. Now, the response to Solo assaulting her relatives, one of which happens to be a minor, which is a nephew, was silent. Nobody really talked about it. You didn't hear too much about it in the news. There's no demands for her to be suspended indefinitely. You don't hear anybody bitching and moaning about how the National Women's Soccer League president should resign for failing to act aggressively enough to satisfy whoever. Nobody's protesting. But yet, in the case of American football players, it's feminists, opportunistic politicians, and members of the media who want to spread their agenda. But you have female athletes of any kind, as well as just regular women in general. There's no outrage, to appease when a woman is accused of or caught committing domestic violence. And the same thing happened 2 weeks ago. You had a WNBA star, Britney Griner, who was also arrested 2 weeks ago, as I mentioned, for assaulting her girlfriend, who was also a WNBA player. And as far as I know, Griner and her girlfriend have yet to be punished by the league. They've yet to be punished by the league. Nobody's really protesting or calling for Britney Griner to lose her endorsement. Nobody's calling for the resignation of the commissioner of the WNBA. Instead, the big topic right now in the WNBA is the fact that Isaiah Thomas is now the new president of the New York Liberty, and a lot of people feel like him being the president of the Liberty, because Isaiah Thomas was charged of sexual harassment, that there's no way Isaiah Thomas should work around women, even though I have a hard time believing that in the last 8 years, Isaiah Thomas was not any way involved with working with women. You can't. I have a hard time believing that no women worked on the TNT or NBA TV set in which Isaiah Thomas has been working for the last 3 or 4 years. And before that, he was also the head coach at Florida International University, which I'm pretty sure there's women that work at that university too. But Lord, he is now the president of the New York Liberty, and people do not want him to have that job because he's going to be around women. So because he's going to be around women, a lot of people feel that Isaiah Thomas should not get this job with the New York Liberty, and that the WNBA should do something to prevent him from doing his job as being the president of the New York Liberty. And so people are focused on that, but not focused on the fact that Britney Griner committed acts of domestic violence, and yet nobody's pressuring anybody to do anything about it. Instead, like with most cases when it comes to women, we just want to sweep it under the rug and act like nothing's happened. So right now, that's the main topics right now in the WNBA. And so my feeling towards it is that it should be that Britney Griner should get the same punishment that if it was a man. If that was an NBA player that assaulted his girlfriend, everybody would be calling for that player to be suspended indefinitely. Everybody would be calling for that player to lose his endorsement. Everybody would be calling for that player to probably most likely never play in the league again and probably get the same treatment that Ray Rice has gotten, because Ray Rice, for the most part, has been blackballed out of the NFL. So that's that for Britney Griner. Then also, too, last year, around this time, you had a security camera footage that showed singer Solange Knowles beating up her brother-in-law, Jay-Z. And the reaction to that was just, And some reactions got LOL. People thought it was funny. People thought it was hilarious. That was like the funniest thing in the world. Like, oh, look at Solange, beat up Jay-Z in the elevator. Nobody was calling for Solange Knowles to, be released from her singing contract. No, nobody was, rallying against her. Nobody was asking for her to lose her endorsements or whatever it is that she does. None of that.